Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest UE4 Twitch stream for July 10th. I'm Ray Davis, General Manager for the Unreal Engine. With me, I have...
I'm Lauren Ridge. I'm a tech writer here.
I'm Ryan Brucks, a senior environment artist.
And a little later on, we have a special guest, Daniel Wright, one of our senior rendering engineers, coming to join us. To kick off, we wanted to just talk a little bit about, this week, yesterday, we got the 4.3 preview out there for you guys, and for the first time ever, the new functionality in the launcher, we were able to get a preview release in there. So for those of you who haven't figured out already, I assume everybody watching the Twitch streams got this, but just in case, you just go in there in your library, and under the drop-down where you select engine version, there should be a 4.3 preview. Couple notes on this. Strongly encourage you when you're checking out your projects, do a copy of that project. Don't upgrade in place, just in case there's some issues. This preview has gone through a decent amount of testing that we felt comfortable getting out to you guys, so you could, get a hint of what's coming around, and also help us identify issues. But there is the chance that, we haven't caught everything yet, so please be careful with that. And I know some of you guys have seen on the forums, I think we have some issues with Android deployment that we're still working through, so hopefully we'll get that resolved soon.
Yeah.
Also on 4.3, in the preview notes, I think we forgot to mention some stuff. You've got those here?
Yeah, so Paper 2D, there's a lot of experimental or early access stuff is coming. So sprites and flipbooks are going to be early access, and then you'll have experimental features you can enable for 2D collision and physics, terrain splines, atlasing groups, and tile maps. There'll be a template, and then there should be a forum quick start coming to the forums the next couple of days, so you guys can take a look and get started messing around with that.
Cool. And also, I'd mentioned this in the forums, but I'll recap here. We have a monthly update to our engine planning, and 4.3, we're almost done with that, and then we're looking at what's going to be in 4.4 and beyond. I believe the public Trello roadmap is being updated today, or will shortly be updated, so keep a lookout for there. Okay, cool. And also, do you want to talk about the awesome C++ teaching everybody how to program series you just did?
Yeah, so last time I was on the stream, the videos were not quite out yet, but they're out now. It's basically a little mini game where you've got a character, he runs around, and he's losing power, and you collect these batteries that you spawn, and they fall from the sky. It's basically walks you through creating different classes in C++, how to expose things in those classes to other C++ classes and to blueprints. There's a little bit where Zach comes in and does some things with materials and blueprints, and then you end up with a little game, but hopefully it's a good starting point, and I've actually gotten to see some people post videos of their work in progress, and that's been really cool to see, so hopefully more of those get done and posted.
Yeah, I want to say, Ryan, you've recently tried to pick up C++ as well, right?
I'm slowly learning. I've read through the tutorials, and I did one little change to one of the texture coordinate nodes to give it a red and a green pin, although it's not been approved by actual programmers just yet.
Yeah, that code review is probably rejected. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a fun learning experience, so I really want to get into more using classes and making custom plugin functions and stuff. So I'll go into some of the stuff that I want to do a little bit later.
Yeah, cool. And just a heads up, I asked Ryan to come here today to show off one of the things he worked on his Epic Friday project. Ryan, you're one of our, what's your official title? Level designer?
I'm an environment artist, but I also do a lot of technical art. I started as a level designer, so my title's kind of gone through a few changes since I've been here. But
I think you're the RPG equivalent of a bard. You've multi-classed enough times. And I really want to lobby to introduce the official hacker title at Epic, because I think you definitely fit the bill. I don't quite understand what you showed me last time, but I'm hoping to figure it out today.
Yeah, hopefully I'll run people through with the basics of what L systems are and how you can set it up in the editor.
I actually did use your flipbook generator the other day. Well, with
cool.
Lots and lots of help from me.
Was that for the documentation editor?
Yeah, for the little glowy spinny thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. One of the things that we do here at Epic, and I should probably actually find time to participate sometime, is the notion of an Epic Friday, where is it once a month, right? We just reserve a Friday for anybody to work on cool projects, right? And I think, Ryan, you're probably the most consistent.
I've kind of had a few months about a year ago where I didn't do any, and I was kind of building up stuff to do in the future, and so I kind of had a bunch of things that were in progress, so it makes it easy to kind of have things pre-planned rather than trying to figure out what you're going to work on that Friday. It helps a lot if you start thinking and researching your ideas ahead of time. And although the danger is that you get a little bit too into your side project and start working on it on weekends and nights, and pretty soon they're wondering, are you working on Fortnite anymore?
Well, the cool thing about that is there's been several features that started as Epic Friday projects that became significant additions, even to like Fortnite or the engine itself. So.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it changes the schedule. People say, oh, wow, that's cool. We need to actually
Yeah.
make that scheduled now and put that as part of the supported feature set.
Yeah, actually, back in my former life as a programmer at Epic, like the very early version of the content browser, which I think when Mike Fricker actually looked at my code, he was like, yeah, we got to delete all of this. But that was one of those, on Gears of War, the level designers, Dave Nash, they were asking all the content, and I just want to search for door. Show me all the doors we have, right? So I just brute force something, and that was one. And then, what was the other one? Oh, automation, right? I had a little UE4 launcher thing, which is now morphed into the Unreal front end. It became quite complex in UE3. And since then, we realized having a standalone tool isn't actually a good user flow, so we'll be pushing more and more of that into editor functionality. But yeah, it's definitely a cool process. Also, wanted to talk about just changing tracks here, continuing to outreach and facilitate awesome conversations about UE4 and get an opportunity for us to talk to you guys more directly. We've got the UE4 West Coast Dev Tour, I believe is what we're calling it, right? So we're starting in, LA, going to San Francisco and Seattle. There's a blog post that has all the dates and everything. That'll be kicking off July 20th. We go to various different venues, show up, just beer and pizza, talk about games, and however we can help. And also, I think we've had requests in forums. If there's your favorite city you want us to come to next, or feel free to reach out. We're always traveling. People love to talk to you guys too. It's very useful process for us to see all the crazy things of how and what and people are trying to do with the engine and what things we never ever anticipated. Which Ryan is infamous for that. You're like, I want to try to do this thing. It's like, that was impossible. You're not supposed to do that, right?
But I did it.
Didn't Paper 2D start out as Michael's Free Friday as well?
Yeah.
And now it's becoming this whole new, almost a Rayman equivalent editor, I hope. Which it's awesome. I messed with it a little bit last week, and I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, especially when he integrated the spline tool into it, and quickly being able to lay out the 2D environment is pretty cool. All right, cool. Do we want to jump maybe into Community Spotlight?
Yeah, there's some really cool videos this week.
Yeah, so this is a Japanese, it was called Petit Con, I think, right?
Yeah.
It was a game jam held, new to UE4 guys with, I don't know the time frame actually, but there's some really inspiring stuff here. It's very cool.
It's always fun to see like different assets getting reused in different ways. And
Oh, yes. Oh, these games somehow always make me feel dumb, though.
Especially if you don't know the context of the puzzles that these characters are solving. But it looks interesting.
No, it's very. I like the style of where they're going with it for sure.
It's a cool silhouette.
like clockwork, yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of Contrast, right? That's the name of the
Oh, yeah.
PS4 launch game. Yeah, that was built on UE3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Very cool. Go ahead and jump to the next one then.
Yeah.
I'm going to pause it this time so Jason doesn't get all the audio stacked up on us. All right.
What's this one here? Oh,
Frozen Cell. Looks almost like a shadow complex, like a side scroller with some cool, unique art.
Cool. It almost looks like the Mega Man cannon, right? Awesome.
The part, we're climbing the
Yeah,
walls and everything.
I love the wall climbing.
Oh, Shadow Complex. How many hours did I spend in that game? I'm such a sucker for those, Metrovania, where you've got to backtrack, you get new powers. And every time I'd get anything, I'd backtrack through everything just in case I found something. Oh, cool.
All right.
That looks awesome. I love the perspective, too, that you're going on.
Yeah.
This one I thought was really awesome.
Yeah, this is badass. Old versus new.
Yeah, 3D versus dot.
Take that, Excite Bike.
Something about seeing a sprite character cast a shadow is interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's a little bit of that, Paper Mario vibe, I guess. Oh,
Yeah, where like the little bricks just all kind
Yeah.
of break up.
We have a few of the guys here that do those with the plastic beads and make the pixel characters
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Well, I think we've got a couple, one of the content examples, you've got the little pixelated, but they're just 3D blocks for the pixels.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Just going to skip ahead and show some of the environments they have. They do a lot of really cool, like, forced perspective.
Oh, bike's coming for you.
I want to see what happens when the pixels win, though. All right, cool.
Very awesome.
Oh,
Wow.
Mario shooting
Little Mario
fireballs.
guys.
Yeah.
They're not Marios.
Oh, sorry.
Make no mistake.
They're no, can't even say Wario.
And then
Narios.
Tappy Chicken too.
Yeah.
Chicken 2, epic background on this skybox.
Super inspiring, right? The starter content, the background from Sanctuary.
Everything is a destructible mesh, it seems like.
This is brilliant, right?
It's great.
Yeah.
This single-handedly puts every one of my projects to shame.
Just like the final building falling apart.
And it's funny, there's probably a slight hitch from the level of destructibility there, but it almost looks intentional. It's like,
Well, it's sort of like that power-up almost feeling,
Yeah.
right? Like I have to charge through it.
God. Yeah, I remember when we were working on a sword fighting combat system and trying to perfect that last second stall to really win the impact. It's a lot harder than you think it would be. Cool.
Pretty visually interesting version of Type of Chicken.
Yeah, is
Yes.
it on the App Store yet? Awesome.
This is some realistic car shader stuff that somebody's been working on. I think it was really impressive.
Oh, that's awesome.
Pretty much Forza level visuals.
Speaking of that, didn't we just check in a clear coat shader as well?
That's right.
I saw that
Wasn't
in
that
Engine.
those Brian Karras, right?
Yeah.
So we should now have the ability to have kind of a clear coat shader where you can have kind of a car paint with sparkly stuff underneath and
Yeah.
a certain gloss on top of it, which that should benefit this project quite a bit.
I don't think that made it for 4.3 though, just to be clear.
Yeah, not for
That's
4.3,
gonna be
sorry.
in 4.4.
Still early. Jump ahead to the interiors. I think
That's
There's
interiors
just so
look
much
great.
detail. Yeah.
Particularly just the material variety that they've got going on in here really pushes the physical rendering,
Looks great. Yeah.
especially that leather. It's great.
Did he
Awesome.
happen to say how much time he spent in making this model?
You know, I'm not sure. We can maybe.
Oh, secondary gloss on the material somehow. There we go.
I guess he did it himself.
Doesn't even need us.
You
All
can
right,
do
fine.
it.
Let's go home, guys. We're done. All right, cool. Oh, this one.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, this is an awesome mobility adventure kit that somebody's been doing on the forums. I've been watching this thread for a while.
Yeah, so you mentioned this is from UDK?
Yeah, they were originally a UDK adventure kit, and they've been porting it over to UE4.
Awesome.
And it's been really cool to see the different videos pop up as they add more. There's like pipe climbing and wall
Yes.
walking and ledge climbing. There's just all sorts of.
Yeah, this is impressive, especially if it's thrown in UDK, because character physics in UE3 were very, what's the polite way, organically built, right? Like I think Steve Pold wrote a lot of it just out of the need of the original Unreal and Unreal Tournament. And then with Gears of War, a very different movement style, we slowly expanded it. And
This is the
God.
part I like, the first person
Isn't this
mode.
the part where you're
This
like,
is
it'd be
awesome.
awesome in the Oculus?
No. The next part will be awesome in the Oculus. And then, yeah, Turbo Boost right here. Yeah. Yeah. This reminds me of, the Wretches when we first did the wall climbing stuff, and Steve Superville cursing at all the bugs he had to fix, especially in multiplayer with the spider physics.
It'd be great to start a platformer or just an adventure game with that as a base.
And you'll call it Upside Down.
So is there one more, I think? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome to get that thing as a template or something, or a module that we can plug into.
So somebody's been working on a quadcopter flight trainer using
Right.
blueprints, and they've got a little example of their
Wow.
script over here.
Yeah, speak of things that we never anticipated being done with blueprints.
A quadcopter in a kitchen?
No, not on the list. Super impressive, though.
Yeah, it looks like the physically, or the realistic rendering demo that we have,
Yeah.
except a different apartment.
Oh, nice. You should totally plug this in with the fireworks stuff and recreate that YouTube video. Awesome.
Oh, I see. So he's showing us various things in the script, but I guess you probably have to watch the video yourself to really get a feel for how that's flowing. But it's great that they documented that.
Yeah, I wonder how
Awesome.
many nodes.
So
Cool.
that's just the 4.3 stuff. You kind of already did that, right? But did you want to go over a little bit?
Yeah, we
4.2.
Mike walked through these a bit, and
Okay.
they're up there on the blog, so everybody can take a look at them. But
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and just a note about so we'll have Daniel come in to show us the AO stuff in person, right? So and we'll show one of the Fortnite test levels is not Fortnite gameplay. Sorry to dash hopes there. I'll leave that to the Fortnite team. But just showing some of the content and what it's pretty impressive what that can pull off. Right?
Yeah, the important thing to note here is that this ambient occlusion is basically computed dynamically. So if you knock down a wall in Fortnite, you get pools of light coming into the room from where that wall
Yeah.
was, as opposed to a static solution, which is baked and would leave behind sort of shadows and stuff. So that's making a lot lot and Daniel will tell us some more details about it. So,
Yeah. Way to steal his thunder. Right?
well,
Good.
just wanted to point
You
out the
should
difference.
stay.
Cool. So and then we've got 4.3 preview out there. Hopefully, it's hard to say. Bugs always come up, so we're not sure when the final 4.3 will drop. But it's safe to say it's at least within the next 2 weeks. Hopefully sooner than that. But I would say tomorrow, and then people would come in here and yell at me. So, which I don't know. They yell at me anyway, so it's okay. Cool. What do we want to jump into next then? Do you want to talk more about docs, or should we jump into your demos?
I was curious actually about your documentation actor that you were working on actually using the flipbook. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that at all. Just a quick
Yeah,
question.
we're always looking for ways to like help people get help directly within the editor instead of just having to sort of match up what they're doing versus going to find docs. So that's something that I was playing around with actually on an Epic Friday.
Nice.
Basically making a little sort of help here icon that you could then click a link on and get out to documentation that way. It's something that I think we'd like to do in the future. We just have to get it in a really nice, easy to use state. But yeah, we're always trying to help so that when you first go download the editor, then you can sort of get ready in whatever system you want easily. So some of the stuff that's coming in the 4.3 docs are going to be like an AI quick start, an Android quick start, a Slate like in-game menu quick start. So basically, it really does start you from a blank or nearly blank project to being able to have something that you can then work into your game or build on. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd say there's going to be we've kicked off some internal efforts there of, how to better, not just organize our documentation, but, we're continuing to learn of what's the best process there and what makes it, easier to access and find what you're looking for, right? Because that's a big challenge for any project. And also, like, better unifying across, we've got some stuff over the wiki, we've got the video tutorials, we've got the actual documentation, API, all that sort of stuff. And we know that can be confusing for everyone, so we're going to continue of, doing like a global search is one of the things we're working on right now, so you can, anywhere you are, and even being able to integrate that in the editor, not sure the time frame on that, but that will be awesome, where you can just, in the middle of like, I have a question about X, and then immediately get all the results, whether it's videos or tutorials, whatever you guys find most useful.
yeah, because that search does exist on the main docs page, but you want to be able to get to it like basically anywhere.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Imagine that in content examples, just like next to each example, just go to the page where that is. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of
Yeah.
my thought with the documentation actor, right? Is like, oh, I see the stand, and like there's a little blurb here, but I want to go read a lot more and being able to
Yeah.
sort of link those together.
Well, and even with our templates, like even today I fired up the flying blueprint template for the first time, and it's sort of we drop you in there and then don't explain where to start looking, right? So those are the kind of things we'll be looking at and improving, just so that it's just even easier to get started and start building the interesting stuff, right? Yeah. In addition to creating more templates, more samples, all that good stuff, right? Cool.
All right. Guess I'll go ahead and jump into the L system stuff before
right.
we do the AO.
All right. Do you want to explain what L systems are?
Yeah, I've got a couple slides here from an internal presentation I did. We do this other thing here called Peachy Cooches once in a while, which some people probably know about. It's kind of like a short little presentation just explaining some ideas to people. So,
But don't worry, it's not
slides.
actually PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's not. So this is just 3 images. So the basic idea behind L systems is they were something invented in the late 60s by a guy named Aristid Lindenmayer to study plant growth. And it's basically a string replacement algorithm. So you start with a seed or an axiom, in this case A, and you define some rules such as A equals AB and B equals A. And you can kind of see on this side over here an example of how that would be interpreted. So you first see A, and then the string replaces the A with AB, and then the rule for A gets applied to this A, and which branches it to AB, and so on. So you can see how the string kind of builds in complexity at each iteration. So this is just kind of a real basic example of one type of L system, which is just a simple system that has a command for draw a line, which is F, turn, and turn left. So this whole L system is defined with the axiom F, and then the replacement rule F with some turns of different directions. And you see after iterating 5 times, it builds this kind of crazy kaleidoscope shape, which that's where L systems kind of started out without branching. And then the next idea that was introduced to L systems was the idea of bracketed L systems. And so that introduces basically a left and a right bracket into the L system string. And what that does is it kind of creates a stack of position and rotation for what's known as the turtle, which the turtle is kind of how the L system draws lines forward and keeps its position.
Is this actually tied to the old Apple turtle drawing program?
No, this isn't.
Okay.
It's just a concept. But so in this case, like we hit the first bracket and it's going to store the position on the stack, and then if there's another left bracket, it's going to add another position to the stack, and then the next bracket is going to store the next position on the stack. And you can see for each closing bracket after that, it's going to pull the top position from the stack and essentially remove it from that array. So after 3 closing brackets, we're back where we started at 1. So this is kind of an example of that running 2 times. You get little 3 branches, and each time the branch splits. So you can see that rule is kind of defined here, where it creates a turn, and it creates a new apex, another turn, an apex, and then a straight shoot and an apex. And then this rule here basically doubles each line length, so it's the rule for exponential growth. So that's just one quick look at how L systems are structured. And I was kind of curious just to see how far I could do something like that inside of a blueprint in the editor. So here are a couple of different trees. They're actually all sharing the same L system, but they have a few different parameters changed, such as this one is using 90 degrees for its rotation angle, and this one over here uses what's known as the Fibonacci angle, which is something that was discovered a long time ago. That most trees or plants with spiral phyllotaxis actually rotate at each node 137 degrees. And there's something just magical about that number where it's fairly self-avoiding, and you have the least amount of overlapping shade for each leaf segment. So it's just a nice little thing that just sort of works when you plug it in.
There's some awesome conspiracy theories around Fibonacci, by the way. If you ever want to go in the crazy land of the internet.
Are we all running in a simulation that was
Yeah.
invented by the oldest computer?
Yeah, the holographic universe. Well, the crazy version of that.
So they can be as simple or as complicated as you want. So there's a couple little examples over here of like
Whoa.
just fun little patterns. And I got these actual strings offline just at different sites. So you can see this is kind of what's called a space filling curve, where it'll just get bigger and bigger and it'll never actually intersect with itself. And you can see that's defined by this rule here. And then the axiom is here. And the actual rules are set up in here. Now that was just kind of a crazy example one. And here's another one that kind of a standard space filling curve, just to show those are not bracketed examples, obviously. So in terms of bracketed examples, in the simple case, what you have is that same sort of rule I showed you guys before. Go ahead and pop up the little. Oop. Did we lose the little mouse tracker?
Oh, the
Bottom.
I'm not seeing it. I see the taskbar.
Ooh.
Sorry, guys. 1 second.
It's on the other screen under the editor, maybe? And the. No.
Well.
Technical difficulties.
Sorry. Well, I guess I don't really have to go too into that. Sorry, guys. We had a way to zoom in on this text to make it bigger, but it seems like that sort of went away.
Oh, okay.
But I can kind of step you guys through some iterations and kind of show how the different strings grow. So basically, after one iteration, you've just got a line. And after the second iteration, you see that each one's split into two, which is set up by this rule here, which hopefully we'll figure out how to get that launched in a second. So you see that at each iteration, it kind of grows. Uh-oh. Getting a little bit of
overlap there.
corruption or something there.
Oh.
At each iteration, it grows in branches. But there's ways to add parameters at each point in here, although it's going to be really hard to read this. So I'm almost debating whether or not I should.
Go for
You
it.
know, if we can. I'm going to have to scoot up a little bit closer. Sorry, guys. All right. You know what? I cannot read it.
All right.
Well, anyways, I can show how some of these trees could be changed into the other ones by changing some of these parameters. So. That's it. Sorry, guys.
Are we looking for the magnifier tool here?
I'm looking for the magnifier tool. It went away somehow. Ah, there it is.
You know, you put it down there too.
It was behind the taskbar. All right, sorry,
You
guys.
hid it somewhere really safe for later and then forgot.
All right, so if we go into this rule here, and before we turn left, or sorry, just after we turn left, we're going to tell it to roll 90 degrees. So on that branch, you see now, after each subsequent branch, it rotated 90 degrees from the other axis. And we're going to go in there, and on the other axis, we're going to put in another turn for 90. And you can see that rotated both of them. So that's just one quick way. Sorry, ignore the little graphical corruption. I'm not sure what's going on with there, but probably because it's the first time I've put this many L systems into one little map before. So, for example, we could change that 90 to be 137. Let me put some more iterations on here. And that's going to change it to be the Fibonacci rotation. So we can sort of grow that out, and you can see it has that rotation. So these other trees have a few more things going on that I want to get into because it's a lot of typing. But they also have some parameters for branch thickness. So we can increase the branch thickness of the tree right there, as well as you can change the parameters for the equation for how the branch thickness is changed throughout the life of the tree. I'm going to decrease iterations just a little bit to make it faster. So if we go down to here to define parameters, you can see I have a bunch of different values that are defined. And these are actually referenced within the string. So you can basically type variables. And this is basically affecting how much the branch thickness decreases at each point. And within here, we can also change things like those rotation angles, which is a little bit more convenient. So we could make it a 137. And then we could change, right now, the turn 1 angle is set to 5, and the other one is 30, which makes it sort of look like it's shooting straight up. But if we make them equal, you see the tree sort of splays out, kind of like the other one, in all directions. So, and all that's handled through parsing inside the blueprints. And just a quick little example of what's going on inside the blueprint in each step there. So here's a little example blueprint that converts what's called infix expressions to postfix. And so infix is what most people are used to with math, like 1 + 1 = 2, and things like that, which it's actually kind of expensive and difficult to parse that using a computer because you have to figure out what kind of operator you're dealing with. Does it deal with operators on the left and the right, and et cetera? So there's a lot of branching in cases. So this is using something called a shunting yard algorithm that converts that expression to something that's called postfix or reverse Polish notation. So here is it stacked it in order of postfix operations. So it's pretty easy for the computer to parse this. It just goes left to right, and it has a stack of numbers. And each time it hits an operator, it operates on the previous 2 things in the stack and removes one of them. And at the end of the thing, it's going to have the answer. Or you had too many operators. So in this case, it's showing us that's there. So at each point, it's kind of solving the string and then inheriting whatever parent parameters there were. So this is all just to give you an idea of, this is all super prototype and doesn't actually save data that you could import into another map or anything yet. It's all sort of doing it all within the construction script.
Right.
But it's just kind of an idea for what type of tools you could do with an L system. And there's a lot of ways you could shape it from here where it doesn't have to be direct manipulating of the string. You could kind of hide those strings within options that are more user-friendly, presentable, and expose only a few parameters, for example.
Yeah.
But some things that I want to get working next after this is more environment sensing, such as tracing to the world for vines and giving trees the ability to have sort of sweeping or swaying, where they kind of sag down with gravity or they reach up towards the light like they're reaching for the light. And all that can be accomplished through what's known as gravitropism in L systems, or just plant biology in general, where different plants have a different response to light. So I'm hoping to get all that sort of stuff in there and hopefully at some point find a way to actually export meshes and obviously get leaves and stuff on here as well. But cool. I think that's pretty much...
So how'd you stumble into L systems in the first place?
It was actually John Lindquist, one of our technical artists on Fortnite. He was talking about doing the lightning storms that he did for the clouds, which
cool.
it's a pretty awesome blueprint that he made. So he used something that was very similar to L systems for that, although I think it's more of a hard-coded algorithm for the branching as opposed to L systems where you can enter in any string and it can do any type of branching that you specify. But he kind of just mentioned the concept of L systems, and I hadn't even heard of it. So I started Googling it. I was like, oh, this looks like a fun little thing, and it's not too complicated. It's basically using strings. The blueprint knows that this uses... most of all is things like parse into array using like a space or a comma delimiter, or parsing using the equal sign and things like that. And then it can use also the find substring command, which is very useful in blueprints as well. So for example, anytime you find an open parentheses, you can find the closing parentheses and make sure that it's at the same depth and things like that. And
cool.
So it makes extensive use of those nodes.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it'd be awesome if we could figure out a way to create like a science project channel or something in the launcher so we could package up these things that aren't, it's not quite a engine feature yet, but it's a cool example of something you might use in your own projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, from trees to lightning bolts to God knows what else. So in the middle of that, you guys can see Daniel Wright has joined us, rendering engineer extraordinaire.
Hey guys.
He is here to talk to us about dynamic ambient occlusion and what you've done, right?
Yeah, and a few other things. Just the progress we've made on rendering features that made it into 4.3.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, did you already kick it off?
I'm just loading up the editor, yeah.
Okay. So
Cool.
the first thing is we have a new documentation for performance.
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess we can include that link somewhere that people can find it, because I can't really say the link right now.
Yeah, it should be published in the 4.3 documentation
Okay.
So when we put out the release notes, we'll be like, here's all the new stuff, and that'll be in there.
So this is a documentation to help people track down performance issues in their own, like the tools we have in the editor for that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
before we had one for mobile,
Mhm.
but it was very mobile specific.
Okay.
And now we have a general one. It's like if you're targeting PC games, consoles, wide range of hardware,
Right.
it has lots of information in there.
Cool.
Especially like if you're doing 60 frames per second, then you really need to get down the overhead. There's a lot of features that are enabled by default, and you don't necessarily want all of them on if you're doing 60.
Yeah, especially. Cool.
Let's get this over for you.
Yeah, let me get this,
All
this
right.
table here.
That looks great.
Don't look at that. Don't look at that yet.
What?
I gotta talk about the other stuff first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that screen everybody will get to see when you're
Good.
ready.
Oh my gosh, can barely read that.
Now you know how I felt.
For the next stream, let's get a bigger monitor.
All right, so this one,
Right.
this is what it looked like in 4.2 if you had a bunch of lit translucency from a stationary light. So we're inside a cave. All of the particle effects are just receiving lighting from the sun outside, which should be shadowed. And in 4.3, now we're generating a shadow map in the lighting build process that will shadow all the stuff that should be shadowed from the light.
Cool.
So the cool thing about this is it maintains the benefits of a stationary light, which is mostly performance. It's really fast to execute. If this was a movable directional light, then it would cost a lot more. There's actually no dynamic shadows being rendered at all in this scene.
Okay.
If that's what you want for your game, of course you can also pick to use dynamic shadows, but if that's the path that you want, say you're doing like virtual reality for Oculus, then you really can't afford to have any slower features. And the stationary lights are great for that. You still get great quality. Here's another angle on the same scene. Before, our artists had to do all kinds of hackery to get around this. Like they would place a spotlight that was perfectly aligned to the light coming in and stuff like that. Hopefully less hackery required now.
This will be great for foliage as well.
Yeah. This is a different scene. Tons of translucency indoors. It's all overlit right now because there's a bright light outside. And then with the new feature, it basically is just fixed. And only the waterfalls that are coming in actually get the sunlight. And then different angle.
I imagine the feedback from artists is like, oh, thank God, and then why the hell didn't you do this a long time ago?
This is one of those ones where it really is like, we should have done this one a long time ago. Yeah. Yeah.
At least we're honest about it.
Like it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
But now it's fixed.
Now it looks awesome. Cool.
All right.
All right, what else are you going to show us?
So this is the map that we showed at Apple's WWDC conference, and I deleted all the other lights that were in here and just put one skylight in. This is a stationary skylight, so it is going to have shadowing baked from light mass, which can do really high quality shadowing. Like you can see behind the pillars there, it's pretty detailed. But one thing that was missing before is that there was just no bounce lighting from the sky. So if you only had a skylight in your level, all the undersides of things would be black because they don't see the upper hemisphere light source that's over the scene. So now in 4.3, we actually can simulate that light bouncing. Again, this is a stationary light, so you have to build lighting to get this. And it makes it more feasible to use just a skylight in your scene and nothing else.
Cool. Awesome. Real quick on that, last stream we had Josh Adams on here talking about metal. Actually, just message him. We've got the issues resolved that were the performance issues, I guess, with metal. So it will be in 4.3, and we'll have to do a small code change when the next update from Apple comes out, but we'll have that all working in 4.3. So
Wow.
good news.
Cool. And this is just another camera angle on the same scene. So yeah, before artists would have to hack around the fact that all the undersides are black, and now it just looks right.
Yeah.
I do feel bad, though. You probably put some talented game artists, like that was one of their ace
put
in the
them out of
holes.
work.
Yeah, because they used to know like those little details and how to hack around them, and now it just works.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other features covered over that. Like if you put a directional light in there with a really wide source angle, then it would bounce lighting through light mass, and you wouldn't really notice. But then you had to have an extra directional light in there, which isn't always the look that you want.
Yeah, I made
completely
overcast difficult,
scene.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring up a pretty screenshot for our folks.
Okay, so this is a big new feature in 4.3. It's a move toward more dynamic lighting in UE4. and it's called distance field ambient occlusion. Right now it's off, and that's with it on. This is in Fortnite, which is a game that has fully dynamic lighting. Everything here can be destroyed by the player, or the player can just start building stuff, and it needs to all look consistent, and it needs to be grounded too. So anywhere where there's no directional light, before there was only SSAO, screen space, screen space ambient occlusion before.
Yep.
Which screen space ambient occlusion can really only do shadowing increases. It can't do any kind of medium scale ambient occlusion. And of course, as things get off your screen, they can't cast shadows onto your screen anymore. So it wasn't stable as you moved around.
And screen space has some really annoying artifacts.
Yep.
Yeah, like
about
haloing
those
and
a
stuff.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like your third
And the
person, your
ghosting.
first person gun or your third person character would have a halo around him
Yeah.
that's blocking information in the background.
The bigger you make the effect, the more problems it causes, right? Sort of.
Yep, and it gets slower.
Yeah.
This method, so this is a much heavier method performance-wise than screen space ambient occlusion, but it allows occlusion to travel much further. So you've got like the ceiling actually shadows the floor, and let me just show you a few screenshots. That's without, that's with. This is before we had the feature. Everything in the shadows is kind of unlit, and with the feature.
Awesome.
It almost goes like no lighting.
Well, we obviously need to boost up our skylight intensity to compensate for it as well.
So because we're now correctly, we're shadowing the skylight more accurately than we were before. Things get darker indoors, but you can compensate for that by just boosting up the skylight brightness, so that it's just a contrast operation instead of like a darkening operation.
Yeah. And all of us artists want to use the dynamic gamma as well to take full advantage of that as well, since now there will actually be something to brighten up to when you go into a dark interior and stuff.
Well,
So.
the eye adaptation can help with
Yeah,
that.
the
right?
adaptation side.
Yeah. Yeah, like this shot, you basically don't see the direct lighting from the sun, so it's all ambient lighting, and all of a sudden everything takes on shape. Like you look through a window and it's dark now, and in game the player can knock down any of those walls and it needs to update dynamically, so we can't bake any of this stuff. So that's what distance field ambient occlusion provides us.
Looks great.
And
Awesome.
different time of day, same shot, because Fortnite supports dynamic time of day. And
Wow.
that's with distance field ambient occlusion, without,
It's huge.
with.
Looks great.
And then inside church, so all those benches are just like floating in the air. Like, can you tell where they are?
Yeah, they're
it's very
floating in
flat.
the air. Yeah.
And now they're on the ground. This is one of those where like I really should have brightened up the skylight to compensate that we're indoors and everything got dark.
I think most people get it.
Yeah, I don't see any windows in there. It's okay.
Cool.
All right, so those are all the screenshots. So now I want to just, the thing with this feature is it doesn't really, it doesn't fully show up in screenshots. You need to see it in action because it's fully dynamic. Go, editor.
You got a window here on the other screen.
That was just a load warning. I think it's just taking a second.
Uh-oh.
What did you do, Ryan?
This time it wasn't me.
Yeah, aren't you supposed to blame the programmer?
I bet it's because I moved it to the other monitor in the back. That's why it is.
More technical difficulties. Yeah, let's just restart it real quick.
I cannot see which one it is.
The bottom. Here.
Where is it?
One
That?
more.
more
One
up.
more.
That
There
one?
you go. Cool.
All right, let's try this
One more
again.
time.
I guess I'll explain a little bit about how it actually works, because this feature, it's very new, first of all, and it's quite complicated. It's quite complex, and it has some limitations, so it's not for every project.
Okay.
There's some things the game has to do to make it possible. The first thing is, the reason it's called distance field ambient occlusion is because we have to pre-compute a distance field around every mesh to make this thing possible. A distance field is just a volume texture that stores at every point the signed distance to the nearest opaque surface. So we can use that to do a sphere test, say how occluded is a sphere by the object, just with a single texture lookup. At any point, we can see how occluded a sphere is, and that's what we use for ambient occlusion. Basically, checking many points around the surface that's being shaded and saying how occluded is it.
Oh, there you go.
That's
Oh,
better.
Looks like it's up and running now. Cool.
So because we're pre-computing a distance field around every object, that's where the limitations come in. First of all, you have to build your level in kind of a, what do you want?
More modular fashion, right?
Yeah, you have to build your level in a more modular fashion, just like Fortnite has here. Not putting a bunch of self-intersecting meshes. Like the usual way we build stuff is you'd put a wall and then you put pillars inside the wall. But now they're self-intersecting. There's a lot of interior faces in there.
Right.
With this feature, that would cause a lot of over-occlusion, and it just wouldn't have very good quality. Another limitation is that meshes can only be uniformly scaled because the distance field can't be
It's not
squished.
Yeah.
So it can be mirrored, it can be flipped, but it can't be squished. And like if you try to animate foliage, it causes some problems with this. You basically have to fade out the feature whenever that happens. But maybe we can find some improvements to those problems later. Like I said, this is really early. This is actually the first version of this feature that has made it into artists' hands. Like Monday this week, Fortnite guys first got it.
Yeah.
All right, so I can just start manipulating things, and the ambient occlusion updates automatically.
That's awesome.
Does that show up?
Yep, definitely.
So no lighting build required. It just updates immediately. You can see there's a little bit of delay on the update. That's because it's spreading it out over multiple frames, and that's something that's tweakable.
Nice.
You can basically choose, like, if you want it to be really fast, you make it spread out over more frames. If you want it to be responsive, say you have a car driving through the scene, you spread it out over fewer. You can see, like, as the object occludes more of the sky, the shadowing gets stronger. Let me find that skylight so I can toggle it easily.
So how is it actually storing the data? Is it storing in full 3D like volume around the mesh, or is it actually storing it in texture space?
There's a small volume texture on every single object. It's computed for the resource, so if you place a bunch of components using the same static mesh, it doesn't use any more memory. The reason it's done that way instead of a volume texture around your view or something is that you get way higher effective resolution, which is really important for not leaking through walls. Like normal walls in real life are like 6 inches to a foot, and you cannot tolerate leaking through there. Leaking is probably more noticeable than like too dark of lighting. It always shows up. So having these volume textures aligned to each object, and basically like as I'm rotating this object around, I'm also rotating the volume texture. That allows us to get good enough resolution that we can actually capture these really thin objects.
Interesting.
Oh, what was I going to show? I was going to just toggle on and off. That was without it. This is basically 4.2 lighting and
That's huge.
wrong button.
Perfect.
4.3 lighting.
Wow.
Wow. Beautiful.
What's something else to mess with?
Looks great.
Well, textures haven't streamed in yet for some reason. We're having a recent bug where textures are taking a few minutes, so sorry about that.
Probably are.
That's without it and with it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool that we're making more features that work with dynamic scenes, and also that Fortnite will have much better depth perception in all of the unlit, or all of the areas that are only lit by the sky. So we can do better time of day now because there's lots of time of day where the sun's at a grazing angle and most of the scene's in shadow.
Yeah. No, it's great to see, and it's great to finally get some forward progress on some new rendering features here, right?
How are characters handled, out of curiosity, when they walk through that? Are they also just affected by it the same way as the environment?
Right now, they can't cast occlusion. That's going to have to be a different feature because they're skinned, so it can't use the same towpath.
Do they receive it?
But
though?
we'll make something for that. They don't receive right now. That's just like we didn't get around to it, rather than a limitation of the technique.
I got you. Cool.
But it's definitely something we'll want to improve in the future.
Can you speak a bit about what we're doing with the skin shader? I know there was a question in the forums of just in general more details of what Martin's working on that, right?
Yeah, it's in progress right now. It's improvements to our screen space subsurface scattering. I don't want to talk too much about it because Martin's the expert and he's still working on it. He's still like, making it good.
So it's still early.
Yeah.
I guess the people want to know too, is this something we could potentially make for 4.4? I want to say yes.
Is it going to be in 4.4?
Yeah.
Let's
Possibly?
wait and make it good, and then we'll see which release it falls into.
Well, technically, as soon as he checks it in, anybody can go to GitHub and grab it, right?
Absolutely,
So yeah.
And there is a version that's in right now.
Yeah. Totally.
It's just we're working out some kinks.
Right. Cool. Any other cool, exciting rendering features you want to tease everybody with?
I think that's it. That's it for today.
Okay. Cool.
Is that not enough, Ray?
I don't know.
Are you not entertained?
I mean, well, it's not every week that we get a rendering programmer to actually come to our Twitch stream, so I figured you could, get people excited.
Martin would come if you asked him. Yeah,
okay, we'll get Martin next week then.
Or Brian.
I know I'm speaking for him a little bit, but he's not the shy
somewhere.
type.
Yes, nice. Yes, for the record, I had to convince him twice to come here, right? We failed the first time, but we came to the second time.
Well, the key is to ask me in person, because I can't say no to you face to face.
Oh, that's good to know. All right. And also, totally unrelated to Unreal Engine 4, I'm a much better ping pong player than Daniel Wright. Okay, good.
Not true.
Yes.
Not true.
I'm pretty good at foosball, too.
Oh, yeah,
I think we'll have to prove this shortly afterward.
Yeah, we'll get a video of our match for anybody who wants to see the humiliation. Yes. Before we move on, were there any questions on the Twitch channel about Daniel Wright, the AO, or anything like that? You seeing anything, Stacy?
Oh, yes, what? Questions for Daniel. Is there a mechanism to control lighting if turning on/off DFAO, as the artist can have two sets of lighting parameters?
Two sets of lighting parameters. Which parameters? I mean, it's dynamic AO, so really you can just change the parameters and it'll update in real time. There's no need to store two sets of parameters. Yeah.
Are they talking about transitioning through different environments or something?
No, that's the question.
Right.
So the ambient occlusion is only affected by
Okay.
the ambient occlusion is only affected by the geometry around it. It's orthogonal to the incoming lighting. So time of day just changes the skylight,
Right.
Basically the light source, and the ambient occlusion provided by distance field ambient occlusion it's completely separate from that. You combine the two. We combine the two when we go to render, but changing the time of day doesn't require any updating there. That's actually why, if you're just doing time of day and you don't need your geometry to move around dynamically, it's better off to use a stationary skylight instead of a movable skylight, because the stationary skylight's going to bake in all of the skylight shadows, and they'll be much higher. They can be much higher quality. One thing I want to mention with the distance field ambient occlusion, it's ambient occlusion, not sky shadowing, which means it has a limited casting distance. So if this was a huge cave that I was inside of, it would still look like I was outside, because it can only cast basically like the distance that you see here. It's about, I mean, you can tweak it per project, but it's about 10 feet.
Is there an option? Yeah, I say if I have a very specific set where I want that to work, I could tweak it and just increase the size of my textures, I guess, for my distance fields.
Yeah, you can tweak up the distance that it casts, but it can't do infinite distance.
Right.
Whereas the stationary skylight can, and therefore has better quality.
Or is it just trading resolution for distance, essentially?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you increase the distance, you get worse quality in the close stuff.
Gotcha.
But SSAO can help out there, adds crease occlusion, basically.
So you want both of them now?
Yeah, you really do. This gives you kind of medium scale ambient occlusion. SSAO gives you crease ambient
What is it about you and ambient occlusion? That's like your pet feature or something.
Actually, all lighting is my pet feature.
Oh, okay.
Any lighting thing I love and want to work on.
Well, because you did our SSAO for UE3, right?
Yeah, the UE4 SSAO is done by Martin Mitchell.
Okay.
It's much better.
Well, Daniel did the distance,
great.
the sign
Much
distance,
better than the UE3.
distance shadow fields for UE3 for gears and stuff.
Distance field shadow maps. Distance fields are definitely like a favorite data structure for me.
Yeah, distance fields. Didn't you start that out of? I think it was a paper from one of the guys at Valve.
Yep.
Like
they were using it for font rendering.
Right. That's right.
And I was like, whoa, what else can we use this for?
It's one of those ideas that sounds complicated, and then you actually read the paper and you're like, wow, this is super simple. It's more hard to actually implement it, but making like a font with it is pretty easy in Photoshop. You can do some stuff with the stroke filters to kind of almost easily make them.
Cool.
But,
yeah, kind of reminds me, but this actually turned out to be real and useful of spherical harmonics. Like way back in the day, that used to be the ultimate solution to everything, right? And then I think whether just too memory intensive, right?
We're using spherical harmonics to render the skylight that you're looking at right now.
Okay,
we've used it for
I
indirect
retract.
lighting.
I retract.
I think
This is why I'm not a rendering programmer.
Don't try to talk graphics, okay?
Okay.
Didn't the Gears 3 pawns
Lesson
use
learned.
No, I'm just
Lesson
joking.
learned.
You can talk graphics whenever you want. What's that? Ray?
Didn't the Gears 3 pawns use a spherical harmonic light for the indirect light as well? Or sort of an
On
environment?
characters, yeah. Yeah, I mean, spherical harmonics is basically just a very efficient representation of a low frequency cube map. You can just think of it as a cube map, basically. Unfortunately, when you're actually implementing it, the math is super complicated.
Yeah.
But when you actually get it working, it's really efficient to use.
So I think we should do fast GI approximations on deep G buffers. What do you think of that?
Okay, so that one is that a comment? Is that a comment question?
No, this is me speaking.
That's you speaking. Okay,
No,
so
no,
you
no,
actually
there's-
said something
Intelligent? Oh, no, it is a forum post from King Badger 3D.
Okay, so there's a
Made his day.
a demo that NVIDIA released where they're using I think it's like 2 layers of the scene. It actually requires a hardware feature to know 2 depth layers, and then you can do lighting on that. So first of all, that's cool because you're reusing a lot of the data that you already computed just to render the main scene. The big problem with it is it's all screen space.
Okay.
So you move the camera around. As soon as that thing that was bouncing lighting goes off your screen,
You
the
need to
whole lighting
rotate
just
it.
changed. And in their video, you can't see a lot of that, which is actually a small
Yeah.
miracle. I would like to know
Well-chosen content for the demo.
either well-chosen content, well-chosen view angles, or what I'm guessing is they rendered way bigger
Yeah,
and they cropped it down.
Cropped it down, yeah.
So you don't notice those artifacts. And that's not
cheating.
something we can get
Yeah.
away with in games. I mean, we
We can't just waste half of our GPU buffer? Or
no, like you can't crop down the image that you're rendering. So it's a really cool technique for, I think it's kind of similar to the way SSAO complements a world space method like this,
Right.
in that it gives you crease ambient occlusion.
Gotcha.
And this would be basically like, it could fit in as a short distance GI, but it's very detailed. So you've got some tiny little foliage leaves, and it can produce a bounce right next to it that none of your
Yeah.
other methods would have handled.
Or if you're doing a style like a cinematic or something where you control all the movement of the objects and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
There would be some applications for that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are asking, I'll try to get a little closer so they can hear me here. What is the increased load on the computer, the CPU, GPU, everything? Everybody kind of wants to know.
Oh, of this feature?
Yes, how intensive.
It's a good question. So let me just preface this with any feature that supports dynamic scenes is going to cost more. That's something, if you decide you want dynamic scenes, that's something you have to budget in. You have to make the rest of your level cheaper to make room for that. This feature right now is 4.5 milliseconds on a 7970 at 1080p resolution. That's pretty heavy for a rendering feature.
That's on the GPU, right?
That's all on the GPU. The rendering thread cost is very small.
Right.
This whole feature exists almost completely on the GPU. The CPU barely even knows what is going on. It just gives the GPU a bunch of objects and then says,
Well-
from this point of view, do the lighting, and everything else is done on the GPU.
But
from there.
that's a static cost, it doesn't scale with the number of objects or anything like that?
It's not a constant cost. The variables involved there are basically how flat are the objects.
Okay.
The more if your whole scene was covered by, say, like little thin objects, then it would have to do a lot more shading work, because the reason it's made possible in real time is that it shades once and then interpolates that to a bunch of pixels around it on your screen.
Okay.
And if there aren't any pixels around it, then it has to shade many times. And the other thing that affects the performance is how much stuff is moving. While you're moving, it is invalidating some of the previous samples that it reused from last frame, and it's tossing them out and it's having to calculate new ones.
Okay.
So in a sense, the method is doing the least work possible for this type of lighting, in that it does more shading work in corners and it does more shading work when you actually move things. If your whole scene's staying still, you're not spending any extra time supporting movable objects.
So unfortunately, this sounds very complicated for somebody trying to predict what the impact is going to be on their type of game, right?
The main thing is to just try it out. Like I said, it's a very new feature, so it has some problems. Like right now, it only works on mostly closed meshes. You can have a small gap, but a plane, it's just not going to work on unless you assign a two-sided material. All of the information about this feature is on the skylighting page, and we'll just keep updating that with everything else as time goes on. So if you wanna see how to set this up in your project, go to the skylight page.
Cool.
Okay, and are there going to be tutorials?
Well, isn't that
Yes.
up to you?
Yes. No, nice. No, Lauren, are they going to make tutorials?
Actually, one of the things that we did, and sort of released online between the 4.2 and 4.3, is a lighting quick start, which I think even you took a look at.
Yeah.
And we've been doing a lot of improvements in the lighting docs, and like I said, been putting in this stuff. So I don't know if this will get a specific tutorial, but we're definitely going to reference it in the reference materials, and then we'll.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an advanced feature. It probably wouldn't be in a quick start, but we should make a tutorial for it at some
Oh,
point.
it's not just a checkbox?
It's not just a checkbox. No.
Aw,
That's it for the question.
okay, cool.
We have other questions for you guys.
Well, yeah, we forgot to ask questions about the L system stuff for Ryan. Were there any questions around that?
Yes. Let me find them. How expensive?
What's that?
Can you repeat after
Oh,
I ask
okay.
the question? Next Ace wants to know, no, I'm sorry. Unity 2K wants to know, how expensive are the L systems compared to meshes?
Well, currently the L systems actually are rendering using meshes, so it's kind of I guess a non.
Well, it's just a creation cost, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be an editor time, unless you're trying to do it real time, I suppose.
Well,
Yeah.
there's also the cost that it made a bunch of meshes, and now you've got to render those meshes.
And add them to your scene, yeah.
So currently I use just instant static mesh components, which they're fairly fast, but it's not intended to actually deploy to any project in that state. Ideally, it would actually write to an FBX, which then you'd re-import, or even better, it would actually convert to UACID, which that might be a whole other Free Friday or more. Sometimes those quick little things that you think are just one little change end up being a whole task in and of themselves, where you actually have to go learn something new.
You should totally take Tappy Chicken 2 and incorporate the L system stuff to it, so it could be dynamically real time.
People have used L systems for musical games actually, because they make
Yeah.
rules for melodies and
Oh,
choruses
yeah,
and stuff, and they
cool.
build musical levels. So I almost could envision something almost like a Rayman musical level, and Tappy Chicken combo or something like that. But,
Let's do
but yeah,
it.
so I'll try to get it exporting meshes, but there's no timeline for it at all. It's not even something scheduled. So unfortunately.
All right.
Can you repeat
Oh,
that?
sorry.
Are L systems now in the 4.3 build?
No, they're not being released in 4.3. Sorry, L systems are not going to be in the 4.3 build because
You're such a tease, Ryan.
yeah, they're not quite robust enough. And also, one thing I wanted to mention is because they're all in Blueprint, the main parsing algorithm is fairly slow. Like one of those bigger trees, once you get up to 10 or 11 iterations, it takes you maybe
But-
20 seconds
But
to
this
build.
is why you've started learning programming, so
Yep.
you can optimize it. Right?
So yeah, I do want to redo just the main parsing algorithm in C++. Leave the Blueprint to do most of the setting up of the rules and converting it to postfix and that sort of thing. And that should be a pretty big improvement.
They loved it, by the way.
Real quick on that, I'm putting money on 6 months until you're giving him some heat on the programming ability. Because this dude's got the ideas. I'm just saying.
He's
He
a
wants-
rare breed.
Thanks, guys.
Great artists that can also do technical stuff.
He has a lot of fans,
I
too.
haven't done any
There's
art. I haven't done
5
any art
people I
work.
know like that in the world. I'm sure there are more people, but ones
But
that I
you know 5 of them, so.
Yeah.
All right, more questions.
Okay, the last one for Ryan is an L system used explicitly for assets?
Is an L system used explicitly for assets? Not necessarily. Like I was saying before, they really started out just as a way to study biology, and people kind of adapted them to be a way to visualize big plants and stuff by adding things like rules and bracketed systems. But people have used them for all sorts of things. Like I was saying before, there's a game out there that uses them to build musical melodies, which then construct parts of their level.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure how that works, but I know that you can do pretty much anything with it. And you can also use L systems to build subdivision curves, which is kind of crazy, where you sort of iterate over the neighbor points and kind of average their parameters. So you can do pretty much every single type of subdivision curve within an L system, which is interesting. So they can get pretty crazy pretty quick.
Yeah, when you first brought it up, I was instantly reminded of roguelikes. Do you remember roguelikes?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Well, they're the original text-based ASCII RPGs, dungeon crawlers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Inspired like Diablo. And one of the tenets of that is procedural generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like cave generation. And in my own efforts, like precision, like how do you lay out towns and caves? Like L systems would be great. And also, speaking of biology, the game of life. Have you ever just tried
Oh, yeah.
implementing that, right?
I have not tried implementing it, but I've looked it up, the Cellular Automa or whatever.
It's just like,
Yeah,
what,
the
four
rules for,
four
if you
rules,
have
right?
this and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can change them, right? If these 2 pixels are one color, then the other ones will flip, but
Yeah, yeah.
you can
I do
increase their changes numbers.
Somebody else here, Julian Trutman, he, for one of his Free Fridays, he messed with the Cellular Automa, I don't know if I'm saying that right, to do
Sure.
a procedural cave builder, which is
Yeah.
neat. So
Yeah.
using actually the Fortnite assets, which maybe that's something we can get him to show on here at some point, is the procedural cave using Fortnite and Cellular Automa.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, something like the space filling one, because you said it never really overlaps itself, so you could make sure you didn't have
Yeah, yeah.
rooms going back over
Yeah,
each
that's
other.
one of the
Yeah.
biggest things. Yeah, is
Cities as well.
overlaps.
You can do city layouts with them. In fact, if you take one of those trees and make all the branching angles 90 degrees, it pretty much looks exactly like a city, which is something I probably should have shown as well, but kind of a neat little side note.
Yeah. Cool.
I have a question for Lauren. You have to repeat this.
I will repeat this.
Thank you, Lauren, for the awesome C++ videos. Will there be more?
Will there be more C++ videos? I would like to do them. One thing that I've tried to do in the documentation recently is we had a bunch of like how-tos that were somewhere in the C++ documentation, somewhere in the blueprints, and honestly, they were just game features that really you want an overview and then how to do it depending on which workflow you like better. So we've moved that all into a gameplay section, and I'm hoping to add more examples there. And then, who knows, maybe some of those will turn into videos down the line.
Yep.
So.
Sounds good. Yeah. All right. Do we have more questions there?
I have one more.
Okay.
Well, it's not really a question. Well, I guess I'll phrase it as a question. Will you guys start to stream the creation of game samples on Twitch in the editor in the future?
Yeah, it's something we've definitely been talking about, and I think you mentioned in previous Twitch streams about. Sorry, I didn't repeat the question there. Will we stream? Okay. Will we stream the creation of our sample games and whatnot? Yeah, I think it's awesome. We want to do that. We want to show the process of actually making things, and not just give you the final result all the time. So we're not sure if we maybe combine it with this Twitch or have a separate thing where we can show some of that. Yeah, and actually get Zach on here someday. I think he's done this quite a few times in his videos, right? So just combining the formats. Definitely excited. Cool.
That's one thing we do on the docs team is to show something. We'll be making an example, and so it would, just hook it up so you guys can see too.
Do a live,
Well, now that
live
we-
tutorials.
Well, now we have Twitch streaming straight from the editor, right? So just
Oh,
we
yeah.
should just you guys should just stream 24/7.
I saw that button. I was afraid to
fact-
press it. I was like, what's going to happen if I press this
Press
button?
it.
New requirement. Anytime you're working, you have to stream it.
I'm like, is there a webcam on my computer too that I don't know about?
You're joking, but there was a push there. You remember our engine,
Oh my
there was a
God.
push to say, hey, maybe we should make all our engine design meetings on Twitch. Like, oh God, that
Well, at
may
least
be a
it's
little
just the
too
design
much.
meetings and not like actual.
With the ones where we
day-to-day.
just yell at each other. And
Will Substance be available in 4.3? We did not see it in the preview.
I'm not sure if Substance will be available in 4.3, honestly. I know it's not far off, and I think their integration is up there on GitHub, so I believe some people are able to make it work today, but not probably part of the binary yet. But we are working on it. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and just on that note, we have ongoing efforts. I know a lot of people are interested in our marketplace, sort of the next iterations. We're still working on that. That's, in a lot of respects, a new area for us. It's not something we've done before, so we're kind of learning it and building lots of infrastructure, yeah. I wanted to touch on a couple more. Let's see, we had some questions in the forums too here. Yeah, the Substance time frame. I don't know if Daniel, this is more of a blueprint thing, but will there be support for arrays in the split struct functionality? Right now, arrays won't get recognized when splitting. Brian,
Yeah, I don't know.
I
I've never
asked.
split an array, so
Well, okay, never mind. Maybe
Michael
you should try.
Nolan question or
Go ahead, I'll
Nick.
do
Nick
That's
Whiting.
a hard question.
I'll go
Nick
try that.
Whiting.
Right
I know. Well, it's more fun to watch them sweat, right?
He's talking about blueprints, or?
Yeah, blueprints.
Yeah, because there's a new, you can split the struct
Yeah.
and just show certain pins and things. Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to play with it yet, though.
I've used structs, but not splitting an array. I'm not sure what they're going on about there.
So there's another question here. Are there any optimizations on editor rendering in 4.3? Apparently there have been some reports of higher frame rates from somebody who tested the preview. I don't think there were specific optimizations, but what we did do is you'll see like a benchmarking performance when you load up the editor. This was part of our bigger effort and ongoing effort to improve performance even for laptops, right? So the ability for people, to be unplugged and actually use UE4 without killing your battery in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, right? So I think what you're seeing is some of the editor scalability settings are now being auto-adjusted for you. And if you actually dig in the editor preferences, you should be able to find there's options. There's another option too, which is handy again for laptops, to reduce CPU usage when the editor is minimized or not the main screen. So feedback on that stuff is useful. We'll continue to improve that. I don't know if there's any, do you know of any other efforts right now?
The main one that I know about is if your frame rate is under 20
Yeah.
for a consistent amount of time, it pops up a message that takes you directly to the editor settings, and it just makes it a lot more convenient to know, like, how do I make my editor run faster? The answer is always
Turn off real time.
to lower, turn off real time on the viewport,
Yeah.
and to lower the scalability settings for the editor.
Yeah, well, and there was like I think one of the community guys pointed out, if we enable VSync, which by theory shouldn't make a difference, but it actually makes a dramatic difference, and then capping the max update rate and stuff like that. So, yeah, that would be a good one. Let's see. Speed tree is in 4.3. I think people have seen that in 4.3
Yep.
preview already. So that's fully integrated, and we'll be getting more assets available to folks there. Let's see here. Just to recap on this, there's a question about can I work safely in 4.3 preview? I don't want a situation like crash my project in the future. From I'm going to say Codemisters? I don't know. So it should be safe to create or update your project to 4.3 preview, but I strongly suggest that you make a copy of it just in case, because there are always the chance of unknown issues. We don't anticipate any format or changes between 4.3 preview and 4.3 final. So it should be safe. Anything you build now in the preview, you should be able to automatically convert in place. I say that until it doesn't work, so I apologize for those 3 people that's going to affect. Cool. So this is a good one for you, Daniel. There's a question of, for the new DFAO, you guys mentioned it only works for static mesh. Out of curiosity, is the way you guys handle BSP and static mesh a lot different in terms of rendering?
It's not too different. The only reason it works on only static mesh is because that's all we've gotten around to at this point. It's not a limitation of the technique. It just hasn't been implemented yet. In fact, it could be used also like for character legs.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we made a simplified mesh, attach it to just one of the bones, then it's still a rigid mesh which you can make a distance field around, and now you can have ambient occlusion from the characters walking around. It's not something we've gotten to yet, but any of the component types which are rigid, like landscape, can support this in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, he follows up and he's saying I use, like us as well, for blocking out levels using BSP, and it'd be great if this worked out of the box to sort of make even prototype levels look decent.
Yeah, it needs some research. It might be difficult because of the way BSP is generated, with lots of overlapping meshes and stuff, as opposed to this grid-based modular approach.
Yeah.
We'll see, but it's inherently rigid, so it can support a distance
It's a
field.
solvable problem. It's just a matter of you actually finding some time and doing it.
Yeah,
So, okay,
pretty much.
pretty much.
Me or someone else.
Oh, okay.
I have an ambient occlusion question.
Okay, ambient occlusion. Good.
Does distance field ambient occlusion work on instance
Oh.
static meshes?
Not at the moment, but there's no reason it can't. Oh, one thing I should throw out there is the feature is DirectX 11 only, and it will always be DirectX 11 only because it uses a ton of DirectX 11 features. It's basically designed around that feature set. Answered a different question in your one question.
There's also a question about how much more expensive is the lit translucency than before?
Oh, that's one of the cool things about that approach is it basically has no new
There's no
cost. It adds a bit of memory. For a large level, it can be a couple of megabytes, which is usually not a huge deal, but you can't measure the cost, basically.
Okay.
Which is great because the whole point of stationary lights is to get the best performance possible while getting the highest quality, but you have to go through a lighting bake process.
So the follow-up on that one, does lit translucency support real-time reflections?
No, not yet.
Aw.
not screen space either.
Definitely on our wish list.
Okay.
The only kind of reflections you can do on lit translucency right now is you can get the nearest reflection capture assigned to you.
Yep.
So basically, in the material editor, there's like a translucency lighting type, and if you pick surface, then you get the nearest reflection capture applied to you. But that's not a real-time reflection. That's one that was captured ahead of time.
Lauren, are you capturing this for future documentation?
I'm just going to go watch the Twitch stream later.
Okay, we'll transcribe it, and then tutorial on lighting, yes. Cool.
Well, you can always ask me later. You don't have to capture it right now.
All right, cool. I think we have time for just a couple more questions. Any more from the channel?
How far is global illumination from being a standard feature? Did you guys answer that?
Global illumination or dynamic global illumination? Because that's a big difference.
Answer the
we
easy
have
one.
static code for a while.
I'll answer the question I think is being asked, which is dynamic global illumination.
Yeah, he didn't say dynamic, so
So
probably right.
It's a big
LPV.
difference. So yeah, we have light propagation volumes in the engine. It's sort of limited quality because it's turning your scene into a volume texture of a certain resolution, and it only propagates a certain distance too. So you get a lot of leaking through walls and stuff like that. Thin walls are not going to shadow, but it works and it brightens things up. And if you have an organic game without a ton of indoor areas, thin walls, then it actually works magically. Like if you look at
Landscapes and stuff.
Lionhead's game, Fable, it looks unbelievable. They put out a video using it, and I mean they're the ones who created light propagation volumes that we integrated. Other than that, this feature, distance field ambient occlusion, it's a step towards dynamic GI, but it's not dynamic GI. It only provides occlusion for this area skylight. It doesn't actually transfer diffused into reflection. It's on our minds. Yeah, that's all I can say for now. I mean, like it's something we want to improve.
Yeah. And we'll
But actions are better than words. So
go
that's
back
all
to
I'll
your
say
desk
about
and
that.
start writing code. Yeah. And we have an infinite supply of Mountain Dew, so it's good.
If anyone can develop a safe cloning mechanism, we'll get right on that.
Cool.
Like that qualifier there, safe.
Yeah, I don't want to create a ethical problem with my clones being abused, because they're basically me. So
Okay.
Are there any new templates coming with the next release?
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
There are going to be the 2D side scroller templates
Right,
that are
right.
going to come with for Paper 2D. So
That
at
was
least
you
those.
answered another question too.
Okay, great. Yeah, definitely. We'll need templates for Paper 2D to showcase that. And then I'm trying to think there was something. Well, and there's platformer games coming out soon as well, or is it already out? I should know. Oops. If it's not already out, it'll be out soon, I
Can't
believe.
know everything.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I would say, is there any more burning, really awesome questions?
I think this is burning and awesome. Are there any plans to add light shaft occlusion to translucent materials?
light shaft occlusion.
Oh.
Oh, that's something you asked for a long time ago.
Oh, you have
There's
a
a bug
plant
about
in the channel.
Ryan
put his
immediately
phone
perks
away.
up like, I know what he's talking about. It's something we want to add. It's technically feasible. Just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Sorry for yelling at you.
All right.
No, I didn't feel like he yelled at me, but that's one of those things where it's like,
If
should
it's
have done
broken when
that a
it's
long
not there,
time
yeah.
ago.
It's great. Yeah, let's just cancel applications. We'll get rid of the ping pong table.
Yeah, stop,
No, Jim.
stop living.
We'll actually
Only working.
Yeah, deliver your food to your office, so you don't even have to go get
Yeah.
lunch. Yeah.
Catheters.
No more weekends.
Maybe not that far, right? Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I think we ought to probably wrap up here. So yeah, just a quick recap. 4.3 previews out. We're working hard on 4.3 final. Please, if you see any issues, let us know right away. We're reading those forums every day, multiple times a day. So let us know. Android compatibility or deployment is an issue. Known issue will resolve soon. Also, want to throw out there, we really love the showcases, seeing what you guys already build. They just get more and more impressive as we go on. And actually, I'd love to have a little competition on there. From every week we get to showcase, and then we'll pick our favorite and think of an awesome reward for people. So we'll get more details on that. See, I just created more work for Dana. How's that?
But she needs more
Yeah.
work.
Yes, of
Come
course.
on, Ray,
Dana,
pick a favorite now. Pick a favorite now.
Pay
Come on.
forever now. I don't know. They're pretty awesome. If I had to, it'd be the adventure kit. I gotta say.
Okay.
Because that
Makes
one
sense.
definitely inspired me most of I could use that in my own projects, right? And on top of that, we also, we've got the West Coast Dev Tour kicking off here 2 weeks, right? July 20th. More information on the website, but LA, San Francisco, and Seattle, I believe.
There's
Yeah.
posts on the other Unreal, like Boston and
Right, sorry, Boston, Dallas, and Austin. We're going everywhere.
Are we sending a few people to all those locations, I'm assuming?
Yeah. And the idea is, where possible, we can get actual developers like Daniel. You like traveling, right? Have you ever left North Carolina?
He doesn't have any tasks.
No,
He's
I
free.
travel, just not for work.
Oh, okay. Well, we can fix that.
I have seen pictures of him in other places.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love traveling. Just
Okay.
yeah, not for you.
Not for me. Okay, great. It's not for me. It's for the people. See? All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone,
Thanks, guys.
and we'll see you next week.